Hello everyone and welcome to my Y&R Trends channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The tension inside the Newman ranch was so thick you could almost hear the silence breathing. Nikki stood near the grand piano, her hand trembling slightly as she tried to maintain her poise. She had faced many storms in her life, betrayal, loss, secrets, but something about this particular day felt different. Victor stood across the room, his posture rigid, eyes narrowed with that commanding look that could silence anyone. Jill Foster Abbott, ever the bearer of chaos wrapped in pearls and confidence, clutched a manila envelope in her hand, the edges slightly crumpled from her grip. Everyone in the room knew what was inside. The results. Kane's DNA results. And once Jill opened that envelope, nothing would ever be the same again. Kane Ashby paced the corner like a man waiting for the verdict of his own trial. His usually calm demeanor was gone, replaced by a nervous energy that made his voice tremble every time he exhaled. He had fought hard to rebuild his life, to prove he was a good man, a loyal father and a faithful husband, even though the past had thrown enough accusations to bury him 100 times over. But now the truth was about to speak louder than his promises. Jill took a deep breath and looked around the room. "Before I say anything," she began, her tone measured but sharp, "I need everyone here to remember that none of this changes who we are. Family is complicated, but it's all we've got." Victor crossed his arms, his face unreadable. "Just get to the point, Jill," he said, his deep voice cutting through the air like a blade. "We don't need one of your speeches." Nikki turned toward him sharply. "Victor, let her finish. This isn't easy for anyone." Her voice cracked slightly, betraying her calm exterior. Jill nodded, understanding that even Nikki, always the elegant peacemaker, was shaken. She slowly unfolded the paper and glanced at the top line. "These are the results from the independent lab," Jill said, her voice wavering. "No tampering, no mistakes. I had them double verified." Kane stopped pacing. His heart pounded so hard he thought everyone could hear it. His eyes locked on Jill's. "Just tell me, Jill. Please." She hesitated, swallowing hard. "Kane, according to these results, you are not who you think you are." The room froze. For a moment it was like time had stopped moving. Nikki's lips parted in disbelief, her eyes darting between Kane and Jill. Victor's brows furrowed, his mind already calculating what this revelation could mean for the Newman legacy, for his business interests, and for the alliances that had been quietly forming behind the scenes. Kane staggered back slightly, his breath catching. "What do you mean I'm not who I think I am?" he demanded. "What the hell does that mean?" Jill exhaled shakily, her fingers gripping the paper. "Kane, the test shows you're not Colin's biological son." Kane's world shattered in an instant. Every memory, every painful confrontation with Colin, every attempt to distance himself from his father's criminal past, all of it suddenly meant nothing. Nikki gasped softly, her hand covering her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. Victor's face darkened, a flicker of something almost like concern breaking through his usually controlled expression. "Who is his father, then?" Victor asked sharply. Jill shook her head slowly. "That's the part that doesn't make sense," she said. "The lab found a partial DNA match with the Newman." Nikki's head snapped up, her eyes wide with horror. "What? That can't be possible." Victor stepped forward, his jaw tightening. "You're saying Kane might be related to me?" Jill nodded reluctantly. "That's what the results suggest. But we need more testing to be sure. It's complicated." Kane looked as though the ground had disappeared beneath him. No, that's impossible," he said, shaking his head. "I'm not a Newman. I can't be." Jill's eyes softened. "I know this is hard to believe, but the numbers don't lie. The genetic markers match. There's a connection somewhere." Nikki turned to Victor, her voice trembling. "Victor, did you know anything about this?" He looked at her coldly, almost insulted. "Of course not, Nikki. Don't be ridiculous." But there was a glimmer of uncertainty in his eyes, a shadow of a memory he couldn't quite shake. Jill folded the papers and placed them on the table. "I didn't want to do this here," she said quietly. "But Kane deserves the truth, and so do you." Nikki shook her head in disbelief. "After everything, After all the years of lies and manipulation, now we find out Kane might be part of this family? How many secrets are buried in Genoa City, Victor? Victor's silence spoke volumes. He didn't like surprises, especially not ones that could tie him to someone outside his control. Kane's voice broke through the tension, raw and desperate. If I'm not Colin's son, then who am I? Who's my real father? Jill's eyes filled with tears. That's what we're trying to figure out. The lab couldn't determine an exact match, but, Victor, one of the samples came close. A familial relation, maybe a cousin, a brother, someone from your bloodline. Nikki turned pale. Are you saying one of Victor's children? Jill nodded grimly. It's possible. The weight of that sentence hit like a thunderclap. Nikki stumbled back, her hand gripping the piano for balance. This is insane, she whispered. Kane can't be connected to our family. Victor's expression hardened. We'll see about that, he said. I'll have my own team run a test. But Jill wasn't finished. Victor, there's more. Everyone turned to her again, barely able to process the first revelation. The results also showed traces of a maternal match, someone who was close to Catherine Chancellor. Nikki's eyes filled with tears. Catherine? Oh, Jill. Jill nodded slowly. Which means Catherine might have known the truth all along. She might have protected it for Kane's sake. Silence swept the room again, heavy and suffocating. Kane sat down, his face buried in his hands. So all this time, I've been living a lie. Nikki approached him gently, her voice soft. Kane, maybe this is your chance to finally know who you are. But he looked up at her, his eyes full of pain. How do I even begin to believe anything anymore? Victor moved closer, his voice low and commanding. You'll find out the truth, Mr. Ashby, whether you like it or not. And if you are connected to my family, he paused, his tone dark. You'd better be ready for what that means. Jill exhaled deeply, feeling the emotional wreckage she'd unleashed. I didn't want it to come out like this, she said. But the truth has a way of finding its moment. Nikki looked around the room. Kane broken, Victor guarded, Jill shaken, and whispered again almost to herself, oh my God! And that moment, more than any explosion or scandal, was the true cliffhanger. The secret wasn't just about DNA. It was about destiny, legacy, and the tangled lines of love and loyalty that would soon unravel every bond in Genoa City. The aftermath of Jill's bombshell felt like an earthquake rippling through Genoa City. The whispers, the glances, the silence that followed. It all carried the weight of a revelation that no one was ready to process. Kane sat frozen in disbelief, his mind spinning faster than his heart could keep up. Nikki poured herself a glass of water, though her trembling hand barely managed to hold it. Victor's face remained stone, but his silence said more than any outburst ever could. For Victor Newman, silence was never weakness, it was calculation. He was already 10 steps ahead, figuring out how this new piece of information might shift the balance of power. Victor, Nikki said softly, her voice strained, this could change everything. If Kane really is connected to your family. Her words trailed off, as if she couldn't bring herself to finish. Victor turned slowly to her, his expression sharp. We don't jump to conclusions, he said. We confirm facts. Jill's results are only part of the story. His gaze flicked toward Jill, who still held the papers tightly. I'll have my own lab verify every strand of DNA. I don't take someone else's word when it comes to family. Jill let out a tired sigh. Of course you wouldn't, Victor. But I promise you these results are legitimate. I made sure of it. You're not the only one who knows how to double-check a secret. Kane rose from his chair, anger overtaking confusion. You all talk about this like I'm some kind of business transaction, he said bitterly. I just found out the man I thought was my father isn't even my father. And now what Victor Newman might be related to me? That's not just some corporate twist. That's my life. Jill stepped toward him carefully. Kane, I did this because I needed answers too. Catherine left us all with questions and maybe she was protecting you from something much bigger. Kane looked at her, eyes raw with betrayal. Or maybe she was protecting you, he shot back. Maybe she knew the truth and decided I didn't deserve to know. Nikki moved closer to Kane, her maternal instincts surfacing. Kane, I can't imagine what you're feeling right now. But please don't shut yourself off. If there's even a chance you have Newman blood in you, it means Catherine wasn't hiding you. She was saving you. Kane laughed bitterly. Saving me from what? From being part of this family? From living in a world where every secret is a weapon? His voice echoed across the room, and even Victor's composure seemed to waver for a moment. I don't want your name, your money, or your legacy, Kane said, glaring at Victor. All I ever wanted was to know who I was. Victor's tone was cool, almost detached. That's precisely what we're going to find out. You might not like the answer, Mr. Ashby. He turned to Nikki, his eyes narrowing. Get Dr. Newman on the phone. I want another test, discreetly. No one else can know about this yet. Nikki frowned. Victor, are you sure that's wise? Jill's already gone public with this. Secrets don't last long in this town. He gave her a knowing look. That's why I want the truth before the vultures come circling. Jill shook her head. You really haven't changed, have you? Always needing to control the story. Victor smirked faintly. And you haven't changed either, Jill. Always needing to be the one who exposes it. Later that evening, Kane wandered alone through Chancellor Park. The night air was cool, the sound of rustling leaves barely covering the storm brewing inside his mind. He could still hear Jill's voice echoing. You're not Colin's son. Every word replayed in his head like a broken record. If he wasn't Colin's, then who was he? And worse, what did being a Newman mean? He remembered every painful moment of trying to prove himself, every time someone doubted his worth, every betrayal he'd endured. Now he felt like his entire identity had been ripped away with one sentence. He pulled out his phone, staring at the screen for a long time before dialing a number. Lily, he whispered when she answered. It's me. I need to see you. Back at the ranch, Nikki sat by the fire, her face pale with unease. Victor, this feels wrong, she said quietly. Kane deserves the truth, but he doesn't deserve to be treated like a suspect. Victor didn't look up from his phone. He's not a suspect. He's an unknown. And in my world, unknowns are dangerous. Nikki shook her head. He's Catherine's grandson in every way that matters. She loved him, Victor. You can't turn this into another power game. Victor finally looked up, his eyes softening just slightly. I'm not turning it into anything. But if his blood ties to me, to the Newmans, that means our entire legacy could be affected. You think I can ignore that? Nikki sighed, knowing that once Victor set his mind to something, there was no changing it. Meanwhile, Jill sat in her suite at the Grand Phoenix, staring at an old photo of Catherine Chancellor. What did you know, old girl? She whispered. What were you hiding? She poured herself a drink, her hands trembling. She'd thought uncovering the truth would bring closure. But instead, it had opened a wound that ran deeper than she expected. Across town, Lily Winters listened silently as Kane explained everything. She looked at him, eyes filled with both sympathy and frustration. Kane, I don't know what to say, she admitted. You've been through so much already. But if this is true, if you're connected to Victor Newman, he interrupted her, shaking his head. Don't even say it. I don't want to be one of them. I don't want to be a Newman. Lily placed a hand on his arm. You can't choose your blood, Kane. But you can choose who you are. The next morning, Victor's private lab results arrived. He read them in silence, his jaw tightening. The numbers matched. There was no mistake. Kane Ashby shared genetic markers with a Newman male relative. Victor stared at the report, the implications settling in like a storm cloud. So it's true, he murmured. Nikki, standing behind him, caught her breath. Oh my God! Victor closed the folder and turned to her. It appears Catherine wasn't the only one with secrets. Nikki frowned. Victor, what are you saying? He hesitated, his mind piecing together fragments of an old, forgotten chapter. Years ago, he said slowly, there was someone I knew before you, before all this. If Catherine was protecting Kane, maybe she was protecting me too. Nikki's face went pale. Are you saying Kane might be your son? Victor didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out the window toward the rising sun, his reflection faint in the glass. It's possible, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. And if it's true, Nikki, then everything we thought we knew about our family is about to change. She turned away, overwhelmed. This can't be happening, she whispered. First Adam, then this? How many children, Victor? How many lives are you going to turn upside down? But Victor remained silent, lost in thought. He didn't have an answer, and for once that terrified him more than any rival or scandal ever could. The morning light spilled through the tall windows of Newman Enterprises, glinting off the glass and steel like a symbol of the power that Victor Newman had built with his own 2 hands. Yet for once that empire felt fragile. Victor sat alone in his office, the lab report spread before him like an accusation. The results didn't lie. Cain Ashby was connected by blood to a Newman. But how deep that connection went was the question that haunted him. His mind raced through the possibilities. An old affair, a forgotten chapter, a child hidden away for reasons only Catherine Chancellor might have understood. Victor was not a man easily shaken, but this discovery unsettled him in ways he didn't care to admit. He had spent decades building a legacy, defining what it meant to be a Newman. And now that legacy had a new branch, one that neither he nor Nikki had anticipated. When the office door opened, Victor didn't even look up. "I said no interruptions," he barked. But the voice that answered wasn't one of his assistants. "You can't keep me out forever, Victor," Nikki said softly as she stepped in. Her expression was weary, her eyes rimmed with the exhaustion of sleepless nights. She had been up most of the night, replaying Jill's announcement, Cain's anguish and Victor's cold silence afterward. "I know you've already seen the results," she continued, walking closer. "You didn't have to hide it from me." Victor finally looked up, his gaze guarded. "I needed to be sure," he said simply. "You of all people should understand that." Nikki's voice trembled. "Sure of what? That you have another child? Another Newman you never knew existed?" He leaned back in his chair, his hands clasped in front of him. "We don't know that yet. We only know there's a connection." Nikki shook her head in disbelief. "A connection strong enough that the lab confirmed it twice? That's not some coincidence, Victor. It means something." Victor's jaw tightened. "I'm not denying that," he said. "But before we go throwing around accusations, I want to find out who knew what, and why this was buried for so long." Nikki folded her arms, frustration in her voice. "You think Catherine knew?" He paused for a long moment. If anyone could have kept a secret like that, it was Catherine Chancellor. Meanwhile, across town, Cain met with Jill at Crimson Lights. The usually lively cafe felt eerily still as the two of them sat at a corner table, avoiding the eyes of curious onlookers. "So," Cain demanded, his tone sharp, "did you know? Did you have any idea before you brought those results?" Jill sighed deeply, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "Cain, I swear to you I didn't know until the results came in. I suspected something was off with your story. Too many gaps, too many things that didn't add up about your past, but I never imagined this." Cain leaned forward, his voice low and tense. "You brought my entire life crashing down because you suspected something? You could have talked to me, Jill." Her eyes flashed with emotion. "Talked to you? You've spent years shutting everyone out. You've hidden behind that calm smile while you were falling apart inside. I did this because you deserved the truth, even if it hurt." He looked away, his anger softening into exhaustion. "I don't even know who I am anymore. One minute I'm Colin's son, then I'm not. Now I might be tied to Victor Newman? That's not a truth, Jill. That's a nightmare." She reached across the table, her voice trembling. "Cain, listen to me. Whatever this turns out to be, you're still you. You're still the man Catherine believed in. Don't let a name change that." But Cain wasn't convinced. He pushed his chair back abruptly and stood up. "I need answers," he said. "Real answers. And I'm not getting them from you." As he left the cafe, Jill's eyes filled with tears. She had done what she thought was right, but as always in Genoa City, right and wrong were never clear lines, only shades of regret. Later that day, Victor met privately with a man few people knew existed. Dr. Alan Pierce, a genetic specialist who had done quiet work for Newman Enterprises before. "Mr. Newman," the doctor said nervously, glancing over the file, "these results are consistent with a second-degree biological relationship, something like a father and son or uncle and nephew." Victor's expression was unreadable. "So which is it?" "That's the problem," Dr. Pierce admitted. "Without maternal data or additional samples, it's impossible to be definitive. But, he hesitated, then added, the match percentage suggests something closer to paternity. Victor sat back, exhaling slowly. That will be all for now, doctor. I'll contact you if I need further analysis. As soon as the doctor left, Victor picked up the phone. Michael, he said curtly when the line connected. I need everything you can find on Kane Ashby's early life, records, birth certificates, anything that might have been sealed or altered. Michael Baldwin's voice was cautious. Victor, may I ask why? Victor's tone was firm. Because I don't believe in coincidences, and I don't believe Catherine Chancellor would have hidden something like this without a damn good reason. Back at the ranch, Nikki met with Jill in secret. The two women sat across from each other, their long, complicated history hanging between them like a shadow. You had no right, Nikki said softly but firmly. You could have destroyed Kane with that announcement. Jill's eyes narrowed. Don't act like you wouldn't have wanted to know if you were in my position. The truth was going to come out eventually. Maybe, Nikki said. But Catherine's secrets weren't just about the past, they were about protection. She kept things hidden to save people. Jill gave a bitter laugh. Or to control them. Catherine always played God, deciding who deserved the truth and who didn't. Maybe this time her secrets caught up with us all. Their argument was interrupted by a soft knock at the door. It was Kane. He stepped inside, his face pale but determined. I think I know where to start, he said. Nikki frowned. Start with what? Kane's eyes flicked between them. Finding out who my real mother was. Catherine always said there were things about my adoption that didn't make sense. If she protected me, maybe she left a clue. Jill's heart skipped. A clue? Catherine didn't leave any records. He cut her off. She did. In her old journals. The ones you locked away after her death. I saw them once years ago before you took them. Jill froze. You don't mean? Yes, he said. The Chancellor estate. If there's anything that can tell me who I really am, it's in there. Nikki exchanged a worried look with Jill. Be careful, Kane. Some truths aren't meant to be found. Kane gave a small weary smile. That's what everyone keeps telling me. He turned to leave, but as he reached the door, Victor appeared in the doorway, his towering presence filling the room. You're not going anywhere, Victor said coldly. Kane stiffened. Excuse me. Victor stepped closer, his eyes burning with quiet authority. If you're going to dig into this, you'll do it with me. Not behind my back. Kane met his gaze, defiant. You don't get to decide that.